This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. It's August 25th, 2023. I'm Charlie Fink with Rony Abovitz for This Week in XR. Rony, we are Tedless today.
I know, we're very sad. Ted, we miss you.
So this is the great thing about having three co-hosts, though. Somebody can drop out and we will still have spirited banter and entertaining color commentary on the week's news, which is not very substantial as we crawl into the last week of August. Everybody must be on vacation or something.
Yeah, it's got that the August slowdown, except for the fires around the world and the hurricanes hitting California. But outside of that, it's been
everybody's
slow.
On vacation. Yeah, everybody who's not on fire is on vacation. So we had a great guest today, Anurupa Ganguly. She is the CEO and founder of Prisms, a VR system for education, primarily, I believe, math. We'll learn more about that, but training and simulation continue to be, in my opinion, the killer app of XR, and certainly its proven value to comprehension and retention and education. So let's get on to the news, which is, as I said, not too dramatic. Nvidia announced its results 2 days ago, and it seems like all that money that's being invested in different AI startups, including Hugging Face, which just raised another $200 million from Salesforce. All of that $200 million is going to go to Nvidia.
Yeah, I think Nvidia's figured out the right model for now, which is startups and big companies buying Nvidia servers and Nvidia chips. Jensen's got the AI market dialed in more than anyone else. The hardest part is, do people actually want what they're building? Is that going to be a profitable business? But right now, the profitable business is buying Nvidia.
Exactly. Well, as with many tech companies, right now, the stock is the product as far as the public is concerned. They kind of left the games business behind. I still think they're making chips for gaming PCs, but obviously the gold in them, their hills, is AI, cloud infrastructure.
I'm going to say something really bullish, Charlie, which is the global GDP is well over 100 trillion. The AI transformation of that is infinitesimal still. So is the upside of NVIDIA much, much bigger if there is a significant portion of the economy over the next 10, 20 years that transforms to AI-driven processes? I think Jensen knows that. Maybe he'll be sitting on a $10 trillion company one day.
The interesting thing is, you would think, given the scale of their business and its rapid growth, that there would be, I don't know, Intel, other companies just, throwing billions of dollars to play catch up. It's not that the Nvidia chips are in such demand. People are killing each other to get orders placed.
Well, first of all, I think Jensen's done. I know him, so I've just done a couple really brilliant things, and we were partners of theirs at Magic Leap. Still are, I think, in many levels. One, the sophistication of their architecture is just incredible, and the depth of knowledge of being very early into GPUs for AI is like really pioneering that. And then they built these incredible software layers and developer interfaces that people love. Like the one really chasing them on some levels, AMD. Lisa Su's brilliant, and she's built a company worth a couple $100 billion from, I think, 3 or 4 billion in the last decade chasing him. So I think there's a lot of upside. But Intel is the big question, right? They're building U.S. factories. I think everyone understands there's going to be this pull out of China, Taiwan on chips, and Intel, I think, hopes to be the beneficiary, but they're not yet putting on the board the sort of quality and experience and depth in this field that the top players want. So I think there's an opportunity for Intel to sort of take the West if they really double down and start chasing him. But Nvidia's really good. I mean, Jensen's incredibly good at what he does. He's like the LeBron James of chips right now.
I had a interesting conversation yesterday with Raul Sood and David Raskino, who have started a company called Irreverent Labs. Irreverent is making an AI system for generative AI video. The video is supposedly photorealistic. And as a result, they've raised 45 million. They just let Samsung in between rounds for as a strategic investor. Interesting in itself, but they're launching a product probably in about 6-8 weeks. So a pretty interesting company, pretty ambitious plan. Great founding team, former founding executives from Microsoft of Microsoft Ventures. So it didn't have any trouble raising money. One of them is a specialist in AI and machine learning. So I think we're going to be hearing more from Irreverent Labs.
Charlie, I think we're going to be seeing an endless parade of companies, company times AI going after sector X across almost all human conceptual sectors in the economy over the next decade. I think this is just not stopping, right? Because the global economy is over 100 trillion, and almost every area is a target. It's really intense what's going to be happening here for the next couple decades.
So I'm looking at a wand .app AI. Here's a small raise, $4.2 million for an AI startup that's going to take artist drawings and convert it into a more finished, coherent AI image. Which seems obvious, and for some reason I thought other companies did this sort of drawing to finished AI or sketch even to finished AI rendering. But this round was led by O'Shaughnessy Ventures. They're legit, and so that'll be interesting. It's apparently focusing on being a tool for people who have some artistic talent, which is, by the way, the people who produce most of the decent AI that I've seen usually are artists, directors, cinematographers, graphic designers. I mean, those are going to be the people who grab these tools and really make things so that we go, wow.
So for sure, it's yeah. There are a couple players doing it, but maybe this group's going to do something really nice. You know, one interesting story this week, Charlie, which is sort of like bubbling on the undercurrent, are the developers popping up at the Apple Vision Pro studios around the world. And the first kind of off the record feedback, some of them are posting, you know, we're not supposed to say anything but smiley face.
Mm-hmm.
So you're starting to see the waves of people being invited into, you know, the Apple Vision Pro labs in different parts of in different parts of the world, Europe, US. People been pinging me all week. So it looks like that machine is turning on, and the feedback I'm hearing, I don't know what you're hearing, is actually very positive.
I read a couple things. One was negative because let's face it, if you sit down with a Vision Pro, there's not a whole lot to do yet.
Correct.
So it would be like sitting down with the Magic Leap 1 in November of 2018 and saying, "Well, there's nothing to do with it." Well, so you were supposed to be the one who did it, but don't look at me.
I'll tell you I think what's interesting about like this moment in time against the early emergence of computing, and people can go look at the history. When things like the Apple One, Apple II, and Mac came out, you could have said the same thing. But instead of saying that, people just got on with it and wrote cool stuff and traded the software and built the community and created all these amazing ecosystems and games and paint programs and all that. I mean, you got like Mac Paint and Mac Write and a couple other things, but people were so excited, enthusiastic about building. Now, I think there's still a vast community of developers that think that way, but there's a much larger community of lean back users that just want everything hand fed to them like little baby birds. And I think those people have to be second, and it's really the developers that need to own this right now.
Yes, that's correct. I think they're going to make 400,000 of them, and most of them will go to developers,
Yeah.
as it should be. This is not a consumer device, and I think that the fact that Apple has pretended that it is may not be entirely to their benefit, and it's confusing. The truth is that this is for developers who are looking, 2 years ahead to a mass market, and a device that hopefully will be delivered with lots of applications, sort of the opposite of where they are now. But first of all, I can't wait to try it. Everybody's asking me every time I talk about it, have you tried it? No, Apple has not showed it to me. I'm not a developer, and I'm not on their list of writers to romance. But I like it.
Let's rectify that. Hey,
I
Tim, could
know.
you please invite Charlie to try the Apple
I
Vision
know,
Pro?
Tim, I'm special. He also invited other writers who specialize in extended reality, and that actually was the part that kind of hurt because I was not. Well, okay, I'm not on the list with the information. I'm not on the list with Bloomberg. I got it. I accept that. So here's a story that Ted would like, unfortunately. Sandbox VR, which he has talked about before, and we've had the CEO on the show. Supposedly, now this is a company that has about 30 locations. They've got celebrity investors, in a way, sort of a similar profile to the investors that Walter got for Dreamscape. Movie studios and sports stars and other people have invested, and they had to restructure during the pandemic because not a good time to be in location-based entertainment. But location-based entertainment seems to be making a comeback. And these guys are claiming that they've got a title, Deadwood Valley, that has generated $23 million in ticket sales across 30 locations. So I'm just sitting here in my head doing the math. So that's over $1 million per location. Now, they don't say over what time period. So, was that over 3 years? I think this is a title that's been in their venue for a long time, as opposed to, say, the Squid Game, which is new. So the idea that there's an LBE title making $1 million in a single location. I don't, the location I saw outside of San Francisco, they basically had two stages, if you will, and it takes a half an hour for a group to go through a stage, or 40 minutes. So their throughput, it's not built for throughput. So that's a pretty astonishing number. Also, this is a private company, so of course they could lie their faces off. Apparently, lying your face off is no crime.
Well,
Even if you're high up in government, lying your face off is no crime. So I'm going to say I like these guys. I want to believe them, but this one is a toughie. I'm not sure I buy this.
Let's do them. Let's say we give them that 23 million across 30 locations, sub $1 million per location over, let's say it was more than 1 year. Is that a profitable business? And I think the issue with LBX is very few are profitable. It's not clear that Meow Wolf is profitable, as Santa Fe Meow Wolf was profitable, but as they tried to scale and make these huge investments, I don't know if they've turned over yet. And they're a great, they do some great work. Disney, the best at this, is actually having challenges in the recovery. There's an article in the last couple of weeks about Disney and what it's like post pandemic and trying to get the wheels spinning again. And I mean, it's just a very tough business to eke out.
I don't honestly. I just don't think the math works because of utilization. Most people are busy during the week and during the day. As good as they might be at selling corporate parties or uh, corporate training or whatever, education, whatever they think they can do with those rooms during periods of low utilization, they will never make up for those periods of low utilization during periods of high utilization because they have limited inventory. Unlike a movie theater, which can sit empty all week, and then they put in, two shows of 300 people on Saturday night, boom, the week is saved.
I'll tell you what would work, Charlie, really quick. Imagine the Apple Store, and next to it is a Disney, Pixar, Marvel experience lab. You go in there and you get a 20-minute experience of pick your favorite Marvel, Pixar, Disney experience, Star Wars with the Apple Vision Pro. And then the business model is going to go in and buy the Apple Vision Pro. Like that would work, right? Because I think these things as tasters for why you'd want to buy the product, I think, and first of all, you'd mob those Apple stores and you'd have like world class content. I think the issue is that's what people really want. They want like the best thing in content. They want like a great Star Wars thing. They want a Marvel thing done at incredible level. And then it's like, do I always have to come back to the mall to do it, or can I just take this thing home and now I could subscribe to Disney Plus
Yeah.
Plus Plus? I think that's what's going to turn into. I think the LBX for XR will probably be the way Apple, drives AVPs all over the place, or the consumer version one day.
I don't think that location-based entertainment is going to go away. I mean, it keeps fighting its way back from incredible odds, but I think clearly entrepreneurs and also consumers are interested in this. But public space VR it's tough because of the throughput requirements that profitable location has, and that's always been Disney's problem with VR. You can't, you have to put people inside of a vehicle where sort of 30 people can wear the helmet at the same time. If
Well, Charlie, this summer I was somewhere where I saw it working really well. So there's an amazing theme park called Europa Park. Richard Taylor and I went there this summer, and we met with the CEO Michael Mack. We were on his podcast. So hey, Michael. Hey, Michael. And it was shout out to Michael, and it was brilliant. And they had this amazing VR experience where you fight, and then you get into this like helicopter, and they fly you around, and it's part of this big theme park that is profitable. And people love that experience because it's one of the things you do across a day, and there's a bit of an upsell, and there's so much volume, and you're there to have those experiences. It seems to work really well. So I was very impressed by how well managed and how packed everything was. And this is the whole thing is a profitable enterprise, right?
Where is Europa Park?
They're on the border of France and Germany. I think it's like the Disneyland of Europe. And in fact, when you go there, the mythology I heard was Walt Disney visited this park, this area he went across Europe post World War II and took those inspirations back, and then made Disneyland. And when I was walking around there, I'm like, this feels so Disney-like, but it's the other way around. It's like Disney was there and apparently saw the castles and all these things. And what's kind of cool about the place is they have a real medieval castle from, I think, the 1400s. It's not a fake Cinderella. It's like an honest to goodness real castle. So it was very interesting, the authenticity of how they do it. But it was like a mirror world of like some alternate universe Disney. But they had an incredible VR experience area that was doing very well as part of the whole package. So I think there's a way to make this all work.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the wiki for Europa Park, trying to figure out when it was opened. But you're saying it was opened prior to Disneyland in 1955.
Before it became the official Europa Park, they had like themed entertainment around the castle. I think for close to a century, like the guy's great grandfather. So they'd have like circuses, and people would dress up and do things, and it became like this local event place. Come to the castle and there'd be like knights fighting, and then they kept adding stuff to it. Eventually it became Europa Park. I think Michael's father or grandfather made that happen, but like the prior generations, I believe, they just had this like local community entertainment park, LBX, going on that entertained the populace over there. It was really interesting because it felt so Disney-like, and you saw some things that were, okay, this is hundreds of years old, and this is 60 years old. And
did you know much about it before you showed up, or were you just sort of showed up and like, oh my God?
No, I was tagging along. So Richard Taylor's one of the founders of Weta, and we had gone to a film festival to show a movie, and then he's like, "You're coming to Europa Park with me," because I'd met Michael at Magic Leap, and he was an incredible host. You and Ted should go there one day. It would blow your mind, some of the things they've done, and the quality level, the finesse of some of the things was just very high end. It was very nice to see.
I'm just trying to get myself to Salt Lake City to see Kent Brettschneider's place.
Yes.
And everybody around me is leaving for the Venice Film Festival. I feel like such a schmuck. Okay, so here's a good story. You'll love this story. Paralyzed woman speaks with the help of BCI. She's actually powering an avatar and making it speak with her brain. She can also type, but speaking is the real breakthrough because she could speak using this method in like 80 words a minute, like we're talking right now, which is pretty incredible. And when you see the video of it, which is in my Forbes column, seeing it is inspiring. This woman has a rare disease that left her paralyzed and unable to speak for it's been more than a decade. So she's really a handicapped person and needs round the clock care, which apparently she's getting good care. But they did a brain implant, and they have a screw at the top with all of the connectors to the brain sensors inside of her skull, and it translates her brain impulses into words, and apparently with tremendous accuracy.
No,
So
no,
that's an
Charlie.
incredible breakthrough.
No, I think Elon Musk's put a lot of weird pop culture attention on brain computer interfaces. But first of all, the field's been around for many decades. And it's really use cases like this that are the ones that really should get all the spotlight, like you're saying now. There's some incredible things to help people who are blind speak again: paralysis, depression, anxiety, OCD, schizophrenia. A number of my friends are running these companies, like the guys at Precision Neuro in Boston, doing incredible work. Marone at Intercosmos, who there's a real interesting revolution coming. And Charlie, it's going to be everywhere from like sitting on top of the skull to slightly embedded in the skull to actually being on the brain, on the dura, to being inside the brain, to I'd call passive brain computer interface, like what we were doing at Magic Leap. Like I do think XR is a form of passive BCI in the end. And it's an interesting thing because I thought of that as the brain is the inner sanctuary. We need to tread carefully there. Like cases like this where you're helping someone regain function, it's just like such an amazing story. But there's a lot of other people who think BCI is about like becoming some kind of like X-Men,
Well,
Avengers,
of course, it's
superhuman.
such a big part of the Matrix movies that I think
Right.
jack your head into the computer.
Well, thank you, John Gade and Kim Libreri and the
Exactly. But
Wachowskis.
this is a really inspiring story. I love seeing stories like this about tech.
It's awesome.
So Anna's not here. We'll keep digging into the news because there were a
Let's
lot
keep
of little
going.
stories this week. Okay, here's one: deep fake detection from Deep Media. Not a huge story this week. They have a $1 million something contract with the Air Force Research Lab. But the idea is to create tools for quote, rapid and accurate deepfake detection to counter Russian and Chinese information warfare. I would imagine there's also troll information warfare, which doesn't know any borders, which might be the most dangerous part of deepfakes, which certainly will get mixed up with the 2024 election.
So, Charlie, this is like the new red team, blue team, right? In terms of cybersecurity. As soon as you have something like this, then you're going to have the people who are making the deepfakes up their game, and then the red, then the defense has to up their game, and it's tricky because we're entering a level of sophistication that a lot of average people don't understand all of this cryptography and image processing, and they just can't comprehend that some of this stuff is absolutely not real. It's scary because you have a very easily manipulatable mass population, which we see some unsavory politicians and leaders already taking advantage of, and they've been doing it since the beginning of time, right, with different forms of media. But this is helping them scale malintent in all kinds of ways that are really tricky. I would think this would be a priority of like U.S. cyber defense. There's a cyber command, and I'm guessing that this has got to be one of the top three things they're working on, or you hope it is.
Okay, one more story we can do while we're waiting for her. There's a good story this week because the Gartner hype cycle for 2023 came out.
Yeah.
That's always fun to see XR moving up on the slope of enlightenment, and things like Web3 foundering at the bottom of the trough of disillusion. Hopefully that idea won't be crawling out of there anytime soon. But we have what was interesting is we have generative AI at the peak of inflated expectations. So my question to you, because we were just talking about Nvidia and Gen AI and how big this potentially is Gen AI going to stay there at the peak, or is it going to join Web3 in the trial of dissolution? What do you think?
Um, let me characterize it this way. I think AI, computing intelligence, is not a fad. It is going to power through. I would say micro elements of AI, like a particular form of Gen AI, might go through an up and down, but the field, the sector of AI, and the general idea of generative AI is just going to keep powering through. The speed of improvements is just unbelievable. What's happening right now? We're like a double power curve. This thing is not going to slow down, and the amount of money and people behind it, and it's real, right?
Okay,
It's real
so
stuff.
using my hat as a pastist, not a futurist. In the past, everybody has said about the Gartner hype cycle, um, this time it's going to be different. Yeah, I know that XR and the metaverse and Web3 and all that ended up in the trial of disillusion, but that's not going to happen this time with AI.
I will say this, Charlie. A lot of companies will end up failing and in the dustbin, but the field will not. Right. So I think one of the maybe if we're there's so many AI companies that have received too much money so fast, making things that are not going to make it, not because the sector's bad, because those companies have the wrong idea, the wrong business model, the wrong teams, can't execute. So we might be looking at 90 to 95% of those companies not making it. So that becomes the Gartner trough of disillusionment, but I don't think it's an indictment of the field because the best ideas, best teams will execute and soar across that valley. It's like the internet, right? I mean, it's like was the internet a fad idea? No, but there was like hundreds and thousands of companies that were just not built properly that ended up in the dustbin, and then the Googles and the Facebooks and other Amazons, they powered through.
I'm getting messages from them. So,
From Google and Amazon and Facebook.
no, from Anurupa and her
Ah, okay.
press person. So hopefully we will see her show up here.
Hey, Charlie, how are you?
Hi, Anurupa. Great to see you and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Have you met my podcast co-host, Rony Abovitz?
I've
Hey,
not
good to
had the
meet you.
pleasure. Good to meet you as well. Where are you all located?
I'm in LA.
I'm in the metaverse.
So, and Ted is apparently in outer space because he's not with us today. We'll see him next week. He's having a complicated summer with his health and his family, but he's on the mend and be back next week. So, but it's great that you're here, and I've been interested in hearing more about Prisms ever since I first wrote about it. I don't know, 6 months ago when I think you guys got your uh, most recent round of financing. But needless to say, the mission of the company is one that we talk about on this show a lot, which is the ability of extended reality and VR to impact education. So it sounds like that is X marks the spot for Prisms.
Yeah, it's our entire reason to exist.
And when did you launch Prisms?
So she was started about 3 years ago in 2020. Though it's been incubating for quite some time. Uh, just jumping in, Charlie, it would be great to share a quick overview
Please,
of what it
please.
does just to establish us. So Prism started in my mind, actually quite some time ago when I was in college. So I studied electrical engineering and computer science at MIT and saw massive drop-offs of many student groups, particularly women. And it began my lifelong inquiry into what is happening at the K-12 math and science level that causes egregious drop-offs for certain communities over others. And to better understand this, I became a teacher. I taught high school math and science, particularly physics, in the Boston Public Schools, which was a great opportunity to teach both disciplines from the get-go. I never saw the pedagogy or the learning design that governs each as disparate. And as I went on a quest to really bring great teaching and learning across schools, when I left my classroom, I became the director of math for Boston and then did very similar work in New York. And what I began to find as a classroom teacher and then leading thousands and thousands of teachers across some of our most challenged districts is that we don't have the learning tools to close the gaps that I got into this work to close. And the reason I came to that level of conviction is because of what I began to learn through my research. I began to find that the top indicators of success are those that we do not develop in our children. So the top indicators in post-secondary STEM are your ability to think spatially. It's the number one indicator. And in top five is your ability to abstract up from your physical life and your physical human experiences. So abstraction in the modern math classroom is very defined in a very limited manner. Can kids stare at word problems, draw diagrams, draw visualizations, create charts, create tables, and create equations? But those are all 2D representations, and our world is 3D, as you well know. So that was the genesis of Prisms: is how do we build a learning methodology and platform that scales our children's ability to work and think spatially and go through everyday human experiences before ascribing language, notation, and building mathematical models from physicality.
Okay, well, I think I
It's
followed about.
awesome.
I followed a little bit of that. So first of all,
Yeah.
let's talk about what age are the learners that we're targeting.
So we look at grades grades 7 to 11 math and science.
And what is the user experience that helps them absorb the content?
So I can take you through a sample experience so that you can
Great.
know exactly what it looks like. So you put your VR headset on, and this was the first module I ever built because we were born during the pandemic, and kids are in a food hall, and they're buying their food, they're taking in the environment, they're just hanging out, and there's a mayor's announcement, and she says there's an alarming growth rate of a virus. Stay safe. And the students don't really know what to do with that. They say, okay, and they get the power on their watch to go back in time and see those behaviors that were playing out when they were ostensibly unaware. How was the virus spreading? So they said, oh, I had heard her sneeze. I didn't realize there was transmission. I saw her friend walk back. Another 4 people could have gotten it. So it's a physical understanding of multiplicative growth, not an intellectual one. We haven't used the word equation, function, form, nothing. Students just saw one person spread something to 5 people. They then accept a mission. How many weeks until the hospitals in your community are going to reach capacity? And it's through that challenge or through that mission, students then begin to connect that physical understanding to 3D simulations, which is a one layer of abstraction up. They then connect that to tactile data visualizations where they can see that exponential form for the first time. And when they see those groups of 5, they begin to make a lot of connections because they had seen that cashier spread it to 5 people. So like, oh, I've seen that number before. Those numbers have a very physical, contextual meaning. They then begin to collect all that into 2D charts and tables. And mind you, this is all in VR. We don't take the children out. So they have that experience. They're using simulations, data visualizations, the charts and tables. And then finally, when they begin to create their equations, which is the 1D representation, it's going from the 3D, 2D to the 1D. They can see where that y is equal to 5 for the t kind of just pops out of their experiences because they saw the 5 times 5, 5 times 5 times 5 in their data visualization, in their simulations, in their food hall. So really kind of going up from the physical layer all the way up to notation. Now, when we first built that and we put it out to our schools and districts, what we fast discerned is that's all of secondary math and science, concrete to abstract, which is why we rapidly were able to begin to build out all of algebra, all of middle school math, all of bio, all of chem, because it's the same pedagogical design.
Anurupa, what's really interesting about what you're saying, when we were developing the Magic Leap platform, we were thinking a lot about this. Like the human brain is it's spatial, right? I think it's artificial for us to like learn in this two-dimensional way. Although there's really amazing abstract thinking from like reading a book and then unraveling it in your own mind, but we really evolved to be spatial beings, right? And I think a lot of students who are incredibly intelligent may not connect with the 2D learning and the 2D abstraction of like math and physics, like you're saying. So we thought it was a very promising area. So it's really exciting to see what you're doing. But I wonder, have you gone into the neuroscience, as sort of backing, like this actually should be education. Education should be largely spatial. And maybe the secondary part of education is the sort of abstracted 2D, because our brain seems to be well suited for spatial education more than anything else.
Exactly. And all the research has supported this. So when I said, the top indicator of success is spatial thinking and spatial reasoning, I mean, that tells us everything that we need to know. And there are a lot of adjacencies to that. So embodied cognition is a big area of research around how do we use movements and what's the correlation between certain kinesthetic behaviors and mathematical thinking. And so, for example, our children, when they learn linear functions and prisms, they don't learn y is equal to mx plus b. With they're modeling the melting rate of a glacier in an effort to determine when is Miami going to have a flood risk that could be severe enough to impact the residences and the businesses on their shoreline. And as they begin to model the glacier, they first are catching water droplets. So this big glacier is like melting. One of them is melting very quickly, and your hand's moving like this, and you see the distance going up really quickly. Then the ones that's melting more slowly is moving like this, and it's going down more slowly. And then you use simulation tools to then begin to create a linear function. But instead of being given an equation, you do it with your body. So you have a starting value, and it went down 2 meters, 2 meters, 2 meters. So now linear function is a starting value and my hand going down the same amount each time, rather than y is equal to mx plus b. And guess what? When we do that, when the students then connect it to the formal notation, it's almost immediate, because the associations that they have are twofold. The contextual, the real world problem that makes it relevant and makes them the why. We're emotional beings more than anything else. And if you don't know why you're learning what you're learning, it's just not going to be as sticky. And then the movement and the kinesthetic awareness is a big part of retention as well.
So, question for you: do you see Prisms becoming like a virtual school, or is it the virtual books that physical schools will use, or do you see it eventually? I'm at home, I put something on, and now I'm in my school. My whole school curriculum is this like nonlinear spatial education thing. I mean, where do you see all this going?
Yeah, so I believe deeply in co-location, and I believe deeply in the social bonds of building a school community, building a school. Like in my classroom, my kids used to sweep the floors. Like, this is a shared space. We love each other. We take care of each other.
Hmm.
So what the way that Prisms is blossoming in our school systems is a core part of their instructional toolkit. And so every single unit of study right now begins with Prisms, where kids get to learn quadratics, learn exponentials for the first time in VR. It gives them the anchor of why they're learning it, and it physically derives the idea. And then all the other things that they do in the rest of their curriculum, some of the paper pencil work, web-based activities, they just go so much more quickly, because they got such a strong conceptual understanding. Now, to your point around just volume, how much VR? Right now, we're finding that one VR experience has been magical and transformative. We are building out more and more and more content, which is forcing our districts to reduce the student to headset ratio. Right now, our school systems purchase at a 10-to-1 ratio. To 10 students can share one device, primarily because about 5 teachers share one class set of devices. So teacher 1 uses it Monday, Tuesday, teacher 2 uses it Wednesday, Thursday, and there's a lot of sharing. It's kind of, I taught during the laptop cart revolution, and that's what we were doing, is to share one cart of laptops. And then we became 1-to-1. So I see the same thing happening with VR in the next 4 to 5 years max, given how we are seeing teachers and kids jumping into this. And the only other thought that that I wanted to share is, the reason I say co-location is because an instructional episode is 50 minutes, and the kids aren't in VR for that entire 50 minutes. What are they doing the rest of the time? They're talking to each other. So the way it's a discourse framework, the way that Prisms has been designed is a teacher will launch a conversation. Has anybody ever experienced a flood? Hands go up. They're talking to each other. They're doing think, pair, shares. And they're like, go grab your headsets. We're going to learn more about what causes these. You're going to have 25 minutes. In 25 minutes, they go through the experience, they do the modeling. Headsets come down the last 12 minutes of instruction, and the teacher is constructing a high quality conversation with everyone to converge on the key mathematical notation conventions and notation terminology. So it's all to say that it's very much been designed, and that's why we're getting the adoption that we are. We have our schools see what we've built, and they're adopting within 30 to 60 to 90 days often, which is unheard of in K-12 adoption, because we've baked it into the schooling infrastructure.
Quick question: why VR, not AR? Because the AR in theory would facilitate the continuous social interaction and seeing each other while you could still do all those things? Is it cost and just availability of like, low cost Oculuses, or what's the driver on that?
I think that's one piece of it. It's just the evolution of device and cost. I think the primary thing though is the immersion into into the real world problem is an extremely important part of how Prisms is designed. We have to get kids leaving the four walls of their classroom to the seat of problem. So we take them to India to build new elementary schools. We take them to Baltimore to a big water treatment plant to neutralize their chemically contaminated water. We take them to the seat of problems. And one of the things that I often say is we're going to stop asking our students, what do you want to be? We have to start asking them, what problems do you want to solve? And in
Mhm.
order for them to fall in love with problems and build real passion for problems, they must go to where they're endemic. And so we're constantly taking them to different countries, different locations, different spaces, different vocations. And one thing we haven't talked about is every single module is led by a character who has a job. So an urban designer, a rural architect, a molecular biologist, someone overseeing the health of our coral ecosystems. So you are not just learning about that real world problem, you're learning about that real world problem through the prism of vocations and people in the world today who are actively solving that problem.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, one last question from me, and then Charlie, really quick. What's the investor community support around you? Are they buying into it? Do you feel like there's frothiness, or is it very difficult to find people?
I think that we've had a really robust business model from the get-go. We were making money from our first year, and that's important because it was valuable for me to have a very clear value proposition and make sure the market was entirely bought in before I continued to build. And because we identified a very clear problem, a very clear solution. I come from the market. I sat in the seat of my customer for years and years and years. So, given that ecosystem, we've had a lot of support from investors.
That's awesome.
I do have a few sort of practical questions. So the company was founded in 2020. How big are you now?
We're it's funny you ask. We're hiring people every day. Right now, Charlie, we are 32.
And you're based in Boston still?
We were always so we I started in Brooklyn, but I moved the headquarters to San Francisco 2 years ago. So product and operations are in San Francisco, product and operations San Francisco, and then all of our customer success and sales teams are regional because we're in 36 states across the U.S.
Wow, 36 states. So how many schools is that?
So we sell to school districts.
Oh, so
Schools
how many school districts? Yeah.
will be launching with 196 school districts and 200,000 kids just after about 18 months of going to market.
So what are school districts doing with VR? Are they buying, 10 Quest headsets and putting them on a cart, or how does that happen inside of a school?
Yeah. So our when a school system signs on, they sign on with we're going to do it across these 10 schools, these 20 schools. And every school gets 1 to 2 to 3 class sets based on how many students they want to serve at that school. And those, let's say a school gets 2 class sets. The science department shares the first one, and the math department shares the other. And so all headsets are school based. We don't move them around
So
school.
these are Quests, right?
We are mainly deployed on the Pico Neo 3 and the
Because it doesn't have to be tethered to a personal smartphone.
Well, the good thing about the Quest 2 is we have been able to put our MDM on Picos and Quests alike, so we're able to put them in kiosk mode, entirely manage them. That is school sales is predicated on full management of
Right.
devices. So we
Yeah, of
have
course.
we have our MDM on our Quest and our Picos.
So in order to update the headsets with new content, they just sort of plug them in and call.
Yeah, they just literally we on our MDM platform will push the new APK, and all they need to do is to have their headsets turned on, and it'll update. Now, school Wi-Fi is not always the friendliest, so we've had to release with our partners a wired offline solution. We're looking into other more efficient methods because it's not reasonable to tell a teacher to update hundreds of headsets that are getting stuck on the school Wi-Fi.
And you said you had we were talking before about modules for math and science. How many are there, and can you describe the different ones?
Yeah. So we're across grades 7, 8, math, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. So those are the 5 courses that we have for math. And then in science, we have ninth grade biology, 10th grade chemistry. We are currently working on 11th grade physics, and then middle school life sciences and physical sciences. I think we're right now in the world of, oh no, sorry, I don't know what happened soon. Right now we have about 55 learning modules. They're all very hefty because each of them are on a core concept. So any one course has somewhere between, um, I would say, 6 to 9 modules per subject area. And so a single teacher is only going to be using the devices, these 9 moments, and when she uses them, they each take about 2 to 3 days in the unit.
Great. So it sort of becomes something that punctuates the regular lesson plans.
Well, I would even go as far to say it's the thing that drives it, because teachers use Prisms to teach, not to review, not to apply. We don't say, "Let's, like, learn it in our ways, and then we'll do VR at the end." Like, fun. It's not a period or an exclamation or it's the beginning. You're gonna learn it the right way. The way that you guys were both talking about it is, this is the right way to learn. So you're going to learn it the right way from the get-go, and then we're going to use these other tools that are better for solidification, speed, efficiency, but not for learning.
And how hard is it to make new modules? It sounds like you have a long list of them. Do you have 50 developers? What is the process of creating and deploying a module?
We definitely don't have 50 developers. I've, as the lead educator, I I work with a couple content developers to write very meticulous learning designs, scripts. We've scaled our content dev incredibly. So right now, development isn't the bottleneck. It's content. And I'm right now. I've been on a sales tour. I'm very customer facing right now, and I need to get myself back to San Francisco to really focus on content dev. But yes, we've pretty much gotten it down to a science. We build very, very quickly. And the reason why that's important, Charlie, is we're being very responsive to our schools. Schools do not have time. This whole idea of teacher authoring, it's a pipe dream. Anybody who says that, they haven't actually been a teacher. Teachers don't have time. And that's why the whole curriculum industry exists, right? And so what we do is, whenever teachers have a request, we want a module on simulating congruence. I immediately sit down, I write it, and we were able to release it in 3 to 4 weeks. And that sort of responsiveness is what's really drawn school systems to us. They almost see us as their engineering team.
That's amazing. Um, so, in terms of growth, is growth being driven by you reaching out with you and your sales team reaching out with success stories? Are schools hearing about it from each other? Do you go to conferences? What is the way that you sort of built up your pipeline and continue to replenish it?
All 3 of those. So we do a lot for all of our, strategics and lighthouse districts. Those are ones you reach out straight to the board and superintendent, and those are executive meetings. We have a lot of districts that hear about one another. So Texas is a good example. We're really taking storm across the state, and they're very regional. Texas is broken up into regions, and when one district falls, the other one falls, the other one falls, and we're seeing that domino effect, particularly in some of these larger markets. And then I would say conferences are fine. I think that's more about just, making sure the teacher community and folks are aware and there's exposure, but I wouldn't say that the predominance of our sales come from conferences.
There is one big ed tech conference, I think.
ISTE?
ITSE, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We were there last year, and it was, again, great to share what we're building and make sure that everyone realizes that, we are the leader in VR education. We have a very, very disciplined theory of action, both from the perspective of content development, pedagogy, but also from implementation. My team is full of folks who are teachers and district leaders. We know how to implement in the classroom. We know how to operationalize technology, and we know how to deliver learning outcomes. Because if you don't deliver student growth, the board that year after or the year after, you're building a house of cards, because you're getting people in with excitement and the promise of pedagogical effectiveness and excellence. But if you don't see your Algebra 1 numbers going up, your grade 7 numbers going up, VR will continue to be seen as that cool, fun toy versus a must-have in your curriculum.
I'm just going to make a comment. I'm thinking about all this great work you're doing and the $15 billion plus per year that Meta, and you're using Meta devices, spends on God knows what, spraying it in all directions, and how a small fraction of that could single-handedly change all of the education issues in the United States.
Mhm.
I'm just looking at like the people that have endless capital, the people who are really doing amazing things with the technology they believe in, and why are they not connecting, right? I think about all the crazy things they've spent billions of dollars on, and just like the crumbs off that table. I'm thinking about you powered by just the crumbs off that table. What good that would do in the United States and around the world. So I don't know if you've ever met Mark, but like if he's listening, they should connect with
Yeah.
you and scale what you're doing. I mean, they could overnight they could do what you're doing and make it something that happens in every school district, and
Mhm.
then scale it globally and get it right. It's confounding to me why people with the infinite capital power to actually change the world, you're doing the good things and struggling to do it, and then you've got people that actually have all the resource to just snap their fingers and give you the help. So I don't know, maybe he'll hear this.
Well, it's funny that you say that. So Meta has been a partner from they were able to support us with some donated devices early on. They supported content development early on. It was a very, initial partnership. I could not agree with you more. Right now, we could snap our fingers and be in every single district in the US, because I've built the content, I've built the teacher training model. I'm upskilling hundreds and hundreds of teachers daily. The reason why I'm on the road all the time is we are running teacher institutes on how do you teach problem-based learning with VR. And you have to understand, I'm in core math, I'm in core science. What does that mean? It's not a fringe, like after school, field trips, this. I'm not doing that. I went after Algebra 1, grade 7, biology, and we're a part of the core curriculum now. And so this is something that I will say, this is like our investors, A16Z, that we do have a lot of great people behind us that do get it and have seen the kind of like growth that we've been experiencing, have been supporting our work. So it's just a matter of continuing to share the voices of our customers. I'll be putting out a video really soon. I don't think people realize how ready education is for VR. I mean, the number of people who I keep hearing silly words like the future, and I said it's not the future. It's happening right now in our largest school systems. Prisms, we're in 196 of our largest school systems in the US, and that was with me and two other AEs that just started a few months ago.
I'm just going to rant one more second. Think about the tens of billions people like Elon Musk are burning so that he could send fart jokes on social media. And a droplet of that, what that could do in someone like your hands in transforming education globally and actually doing something really good with technology. Hopefully, some of those folks are listening, because I feel like purpose-based companies like what you're doing are actually one of the things that are underinvested in tech. And too much tech investing is then just utter nonsense and like trying to convince people to buy things they don't need. Whereas you're actually doing something amazing. Like you are delivering, I think, one of the real promises of XR, right? And but there's not a megaphone on that. Hopefully, our little tiny megaphone helps. But the universe is not fair, because if it was, you would have access to the kind of resources that could scale it. The federal government should be supporting you. This is the kind of thing that's a no-brainer. And basically sending fart jokes on Twitter and rebranding it X is just stupid. But what you're doing is actually important. So
Thank
One
you.
of one of the
Thank you.
places that I teach in Arupa is Arizona State University, and they've been doing a lot with XR and education. I wonder if you've come across their work or them in this market.
So I had the opportunity to experience Dreamscape and some of the other stuff that they've been supporting. I think it's all great. What we do is so different. When I looked at Dreamscape, it seems like it was more on kind of like Hollywood folks, like people who had not spent a lot of time in the classroom. I think our methodologies are a little bit different, and so I would love to kind of stay connected and collaborate with the right folks who can elevate our work.
Yeah, I think they're um, approach is to sort of set up computer labs as opposed to put headsets on carts.
Hmm.
Obviously, both things have their place, but the headsets on carts obviously is you can get to much larger scale. You don't need to build a learning center. You just need a dozen headsets on a cart. Um, it does seem like just having worked in situations where there's a dozen or 2 dozen headsets on a cart, it does seem like the management of atoms can probably be a lot harder and more complex than actually creating learning modules and getting the headsets on the students. Once they're already in the headset is sort of the easy part, right? Because just of the logistics people, I mean, they have to be charged. It's one of those things like when you take out a piece of consumer electronics, anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Hmm.
So is that a challenge for you? Is that an
Hmm.
issue? How do you deal with that?
It is. I mean, we had to custom build our own charging stations. So we have charging units, they lock, they roll. We have to give a lot of guidance to our teachers around making sure everything's charged. Like, how do you put them back in? Cleaning. I will say, because the value prop of what we've built is so strong, teachers and schools and kids are willing to take that friction and take that on because math education has been so ineffective for so long. And now, like we did a recent study with West Ed that showed an 11%. It was a randomized control trial that showed an 11% increase on Algebra 1 test scores. So yes, there's a little bit of like a logistical issue and a little bit of the cleaning and charging, but that is an outcome that districts are not being able to replicate with anything else. So they're going to take on those operational difficulties.
So as we're coming up on the hour and the end of our conversation, I find myself wondering how fast can you get this done, right? How quickly can you
Yeah.
scale this? Because so much of it is sort of hands-on, talking to people. It's not an electronic program you can distribute to a million people at the same time with the press of a button, right? Um, there's a lot of people involved. So how quickly and how big can you get this, do you think?
We are.
Wildest dreams, bring them on.
Yeah, I mean, our goal is in the next few years to be in every single public school in the US. And the reason why we're going to be successful is because this movement is being led by teachers. So teachers are going and talking to their teachers, district superintendents are calling up their friends. I don't want to kind of call out any particular districts here, but it is growing like rapid fire because the customers are leading it. And we're getting now outreach from the largest school systems. There is still a lot of ESSER 3 money left, which was the COVID relief funds. There was about $190 billion that was pumped into schools and those will expire January 2024, I believe.
Mhm.
I now forget, it's
So you
2024.
anticipate having a very busy fall.
We have a very big fall. We are, and I think what you're getting at is, look, we have a team that's on the road every day right now, willing this into existence. We're in classrooms every single day with teachers modeling, building capacity, showing them how to do it. It is not going to be, here's this headset, here are these 20 headsets with an app on it. Go play. Let's have a Discord channel. Let's all tweet about it. That's not what this is. What this is. This is a change management operation of our public institutions, and it takes serious work. And I think that like that's why this is going to be enduring. That's why Prisms is not going to be a fad in VR, because we are baked into the how teachers and leaders work.
I'm excited
Well,
about the
it's
idea of you
awesome.
you get these headsets into the classroom and once they're there, you can start to do all sorts of things that aren't even necessarily having to do with math education, right? Because the great ability of VR to take people to other places, it has all sorts of applications in history and social science and other aspects of technology and so it would be great if you succeed. I think there will be a lot of people will want to piggyback on the infrastructure you're creating to address other subjects too. So
Mhm.
this is what we've all been waiting for. This is why I was
It's
so
great.
excited to have you on the show. I think education is probably something we don't talk about enough on the show because I do think that is one of the key applications for this technology and its ability to democratize education, the ability to bring the best teachers, the best lessons, the best methods to students all over the world. Is so exciting and so tremendously difficult. Sort of everybody looks at it and says, "Oh, that's obvious. We should do that." But really, from a practical standpoint, it's hard.
Yeah, and because social change, getting people's hearts and minds to change is typically hard. And I think that what we're finding is that when I share what we're doing, it's a no-brainer in terms of everyone opts in. But then to train the teachers again, how to do problem-based learning, how to address the learning, how to make sure that it's translating to test scores, because we can say what we will. But today, future opportunity for our students is still connected to standardized tests. So we can't renege on that. And I think that's one of the things I was just going to quickly react to, Charlie. I know we're up against time now, but the reason why I'm starting with those core math, the core science, I will be releasing language arts and social sciences. We've been getting a lot of requests, is because we don't want it to be a nice to have, kind of
Yeah.
going back to what I said before. And when you had those apps that were like, oh, cool, look at this, play around with this, go to Mars, go to this, it wasn't taking off, even
Right.
though it is really cool and it is really fun, because public schools are just so drained.
I think you're so smart to start with something that is easily quantifiable.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to sell VR. You just have to say, here's the before number, here's the after number. Would you like to continue with this after number or go back to the way you did it before?
Indeed.
So that'll be you're creating the ladder up which all of VR hopefully will climb after your science and math modules. So congrats on your success, and I wish you continued success. Hopefully you'll come back next year and share your progress with us.
And fight the good fight.
Thank you so much for taking time to really understand the soul of what we're trying to achieve and elevating our voice. I think the last thing that I would say here is that I have been in education reform for a while, and we are on the cusp of a massive transformation around how our students and teachers experience their learning. Our generation is so lucky that we got to witness and see it. The last 3 waves of EdTech did not. We digitized what the traditional models versus fundamentally transform. And I think we have the opportunity to do that. So we all must put our heads together and do it.
That's a great place to end our show. Thank you for listening, everybody. Rony, Anurupa, have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody back here next week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.